Hey guys, August is done. My birthday month is done. So it is time to talk about what did we read? Hey guys, if you are new here, welcome to the Book Path. I'm Nicole, and if this isn't your first rodeo, thanks for sticking around. Yeah, August is over. Another birthday over. Thank you to everybody for the birthday wishes. I really, it means a lot. It really does. So thank you for all of that. But it is time to talk about everything that I ended up reading in August, which surprisingly was nothing on my TBR. I didn't read anything on my TBR. August was pretty much, I think aside from like 2 books, everything was arcs. Everything was arcs. So I have kind of disciplined myself a little bit more to not take as many arcs, so that way I can start getting through the books that I have like kind of on my backlog of my own owned TBR and my ebook TBR, and just kind of really conquering that, because there's a lot. So I want to kind of find that balance between, I still want to get some of the arcs because some of these are just really good, and other ones and I want to balance that with the books I already have, so I'm not just like having piles and piles of books like my dragon library self and just hoard it all. But anyway, so it is time to go into what I read, and yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So first up, I ended up reading Black Warden by Sarah Hartford. This was an arc that I received, and I did a separate video on that, so I will go ahead and link that down below. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I really loved it. It is a standalone for now. I am hoping it gets so much, love that she decides to maybe put a sequel to it, because there are a few things left open by the end that could definitely go into a sequel, which I think would be great. I'm not going to go too much into it now, but it does have kind of a gothic, magic, mystery, Beauty and the Beast vibes in a fae kind of half world that leads into like a fae real world, if that makes sense at all. But if that any of those were like words for you that were like yes, then highly recommend to check it out. It was a fantastic book. I really liked it, and I'm not one for a lot of gothic-y vibes, so I like dark, like dark romance, and like if there's a little bit of darkness going on or a villain, but set in like gothic worlds with that gothic vibe, that kind of suspense that may or may not be supernatural, that I'm not really tending to be into. But this one, I loved it, and I loved the house. There is a somewhat sentient house involved, and it's great. So yeah, but anyway, I did read that. So next up, I ended up getting the arc for My Sweet Dolly, You Have to Love Me by Cory Zahara. And unfortunately, I ended up DNFing it. Now, this book has a beautiful cover. So it was kind of like, oh, I love the cover. I love it. The storyline seemed like a darker romance to me. But when I started reading it, it is definitely a darker romance. But this is one of those darker romances with a possibly toxic relationship with a lot of trauma and a almost seemingly never-ending list of triggers. So definitely proceed with caution. The triggers, it was fine. I didn't have anything but it just felt like the more you went into this book, the darker and darker. You were just getting sucked down, and it wasn't very happy. This is more of probably of your more tragic romances, your tragic toxic romance. So like if you like Wuthering Heights, you're probably gonna love this book. I don't like Wuthering Heights. Wasn't for me. But you basically have Dolly and Ambrose, who are step siblings, and they are moving into this house with their parents to fix it up. It's very old, dilapidated kind of mansion house. There's some problems you can see kind of happening within the family. Ambrose has his own situations of medical situations and physical things that he's going through. Dolly has some physical limitations to her as well. And you're finding out, like, you're getting little bits of backstory. Like, most of it, I felt I was looking at them when they were kids, but there is a few chapters that I had read where they were adults, and you're finding out that Ambrose is out of prison for possibly a crime that he may or may not have caused against their parents, and that it's Dolly that may have put him there. So that was the part that kind of drew me in, is like, okay, this is a darker romance where she sent him to prison and now he's out. What's going to happen? But like I said, the more I started reading into it, it just really felt like tragedy. And even Dolly grown up is going through tragedy. And it's just like they can't get away from it. And it was just not a book that was just for me at this moment in time. Like I said, it had those Wuthering Heights vibes to it, with that almost gothic, once again, almost gothic setting, because you do have this old, dark, dilapidated kind of mansion that has all these secrets and whatever, and there is that kind of supernatural mystery going on. So I'm like, I don't know, it just wasn't fitting for me, and it sucks because I really wanted it to, because it sounded good when I read the blurb, but unfortunately I ended up having to DNF it. But like I said, even though it's not for me, it might be for one of you, especially, like I said, if you like those kind of toxic, tragic, Wuthering Heights, gothic-y romance feels with like some mystery to it. It's going to be right up your alley. So next up, I ended up reading our pick that was for our yearly Adventures in Aldia for Magical Readathon. And we had been, I think it was here at 7B, so we needed to move up to 8B, just like straight up. And 8B was to use True Light and to basically read a book with the word light in the title. And for this, I had picked out A Legacy of Storms and Starlight by Victoria J. Price. This is the first book in the Legacy of Storms and Starlight series. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was what it was, but it was decent. It had some parts to it that were really interesting, and it's one of those ones that I feel like the series is going to build as it progresses. So you have Zyla, who is of a poor class, and she's serving in the castle as kind of like a maid, and she is filling in for one of her friends to clean the prince's chambers. And the prince is really good for nothing, and of course he sees her, thinks she's pretty, wants to take advantage. Stuff goes wrong, and the prince ends up dead. And she is accused of the crime. And when she is about to stand trial and be executed, she vanishes. And she shows up on the side of a mountain, and she basically comes across this man named Holt, and she ends up finding out that Holt has Fey blood, and that Zyla also has some sort of Fey blood in there, and she has powers that she never knew of before. And this is big because in their world there was a huge war between the Fey and the humans won, and the Fey are all but extinct. Or so she thinks. So Holt brings her to this new town where she comes across various people that are in hiding that are part of the Fae, and that there is a rebellion or uprising on the horizon. There are plans, and she's wanting to help. She's wanting to find out how she can help, who's in charge. She does end up meeting another Fae named Rafe, who instantly takes a liking to her as well, and he's trying to help her to learn about her powers, train in her powers, and obviously there's some romance there. So you do have a bit of a love triangle between Holt and Zyla and Rafe, because there are a lot of scenarios where it seems like Holt is attracted to her, but that he's pulling himself in, that he has some restraint for whatever reasons, and Zyla doesn't know how to take it, whereas Rafe is just there to give everything. Like, he's like, I am here, I am there. So it's very interesting. I loved, like I said, if you know me, you know me with the sidekicks, especially if they're of the animal variety, and we have one here, and that is, I think it's Kopi or Copy, I don't know how you pronounce it, I'm gonna go with Kopi, the owl. And this is an owl that she comes across, and she saves the owl, and he just kind of comes to her like during the day and just sits on her shoulder and just like will protect her now. And you know, it's just he's the cutest little thing. I'm sorry, it's adorable. So I'm like, yes, Animal sidekicks for the win on this one. Loved it. There were some twists and turns in the ending that definitely bring in a new supernatural force to kind of deal with. That definitely made it like, this is gonna get a little bit more interesting. Like I said, I got the feeling that even though this book was a 3-star for me, I feel it's a 3-star because it's a lot more introduction, and there was part of it where it felt like it was getting a little monotonous in her like day to day. Like you just kept getting a lot of, and I did this, and then I did the same thing tomorrow, and then we're doing the same thing this day. And that felt like it was kind of going on for a while, where even though there was things kind of happening, it felt like there was a lull in the story. So I think that was done more as like the intro informational basis, where you're getting that kind of baseline for the story. And then now that the twist and the endings have kind of happened, I think it's going to take off after that. So I will be continuing the series to see what happens, because it was interesting enough, and I did it did get me in the feels for some things that were going on. So I definitely will be continuing it. And like I said, that was 3 stars, and we got our August read for Ardelia done. Next up, we went back to the ARCs, of course, and we went back to Walker University for Breakout, which is Walker University book 3. This is the college hockey romance by Cal O'Reilly. I had been waiting on this one because this was Beckett's story. I loved the first one in this, which was Iced, I believe. And then the second one, I didn't really care for as much. It was still good, but I loved the first one. And all throughout these first books, you are getting introduced to Beckett. And Beckett to me is like the perfect balance of witty, charming, funny, supportive. Like he's just an all-out great guy character, like book boyfriend automatically, yes. And you sensed it a little bit before, but it picks up now with him and Peyton. And Peyton is, you know, the girls team that you've been reading in book 1 and book 2. She's on that, you know, in the little friend group there. And Peyton, I really liked her in the first 2 books. I liked her. She was kind of strong, independent, sassy, quirky, but responsible as well. Like she didn't get too crazy out of hand. She has a background where she is an orphan that kind of grew up in the foster care system. And she's really trying to like make it for herself. And I really appreciated that. And Beckett, on the other hand, is kind of fighting against his family, who are wealthy and want him to follow in the family footsteps. And he wants to play hockey. He's good at it. He loves it. So I was curious to see how they were going to do it with this. And it was interesting. It was interesting because basically Peyton finds out that her long-lost grandfather was alive and that he was insanely wealthy. And he's leaving everything to her instead of one of her surviving relatives that she knew nothing about. The only hiccup to it is that she needs to be married to inherit the property and the wealth. So Beckett comes to the rescue because him and Peyton kind of have this friends with benefits situation on the secret side going on. And he feels more for her. This is obviously a he falls first scenario, and this is his way of being with her. And so he's disguising it as a, hey, I'll help you out, I'll marry you, you'll get all this. Then if you don't want to, you know, pursue it anymore, we can get divorced and go our separate ways, and this way you'll still be taken care of. Although obviously that's very far from his plan, because once he gets, you know, to be with her, there's no way he's gonna give her up. So it's that kind of story. There is a little bit of suspense and tension, I would say, with the remaining relative, because she's a little on the extreme side. We'll just go with that. And yeah, there's some stuff that goes on there. And then obviously you have Beckett's family and what they're doing. And I do love the relationship that builds. Beckett is just there for Peyton no matter what. And I think that might also be why this wasn't as huge as I thought it was going to be for me reading this one, because like I said, I was so excited for Beckett to get his romance. While I loved Peyton in the first 2 books, I was really upset and angry with her in this book. And I understood her background. I understood that she has this need to not really trust others because of what she's been through, and she tends to push people away. And it just started getting really annoying to me, and it was like getting me upset the amount of times that not just Beckett, but her friends that have proven themselves time and time again in the first 2 books to be there for her, that she just keeps pushing them away. And I understand it, she's fearful, she hasn't had an easy life, but it just sometimes touched upon being a little too much to the extremes for that character kind of backstory with her, that it just upset me a little bit. And it just, there were times where I was like waiting for her to get that kind of slap of reality of, these people are here for you, Beckett is here for you, he adores you, like wake up and before you lose him. But then at the same time, part of me was like, it's okay if you lose him, I am here, I am here for you, Beckett, I am here. But I know, fiction, but he's just one of the great like kind of male romances, because he's just a good guy. He really is just a good guy, and he flirts, and he's, you know, witty and charming, and it's just, he's great, and I loved him, and I'm happy that, you know, he gets his love story. I really am. I kind of, like I said, I just got a little hiccup on Peyton and her character, and you know, it was what it was. I did end up giving it 4 stars. It was really good, but like I said, those tiny little hiccups just kept me out of the 5-star range. But all in all, it's a fun series. I am hoping now, I know that there's one other player who I think he's going to be the next book. And then I don't know if they're doing another book out of it, but I hope they do, because there's one other guy on the team, Wyatt. And Wyatt makes me curious because he's a very shy, quiet guy on the team. He did speak up a lot more in this one, and you got a little snippet of who he might be like underneath all that quietness. And I want to know, like, I want to see his personality come out more. I want to see his points of view, because he is definitely one of those like quiet yet intriguing characters from the very first book. So I'm hoping that it doesn't end at book 4 and we do get a book 5 with Wyatt. So I'm like, if the author is listening, if she has come across this video, please let Wyatt have a story. But yeah, so 4 stars for me, and I do recommend it. Hockey romance, college hockey romance, found families, strong friendships, and strong relationships too. The author really does a great job of kind of building a good, strong foundation in a relationship and working at that. So next up, I ended up reading the arc of A Devil Doesn't Bargain by Mercy Ann Summers. This was interesting. I'm not gonna lie, because when I read about it, it seemed like you had the main character, Vivian, who her sister went missing, and so she is on a quest to infiltrate a biker gang to find her sister. And so my perception was that it was going to be a very dark romance. They did say that it was a paranormal romance, so I was like, okay, are they shifters? Is there something going on there? Like, what's going on? Right away, this book pulls you in to the tension and the action, and I really, really enjoyed that. It was one that you were like, okay, this is starting off really, really interesting. And then it started getting into the paranormal in a way that I wasn't expecting. This is not a werewolf shifter romance of any kind, and the biker association, gang, whatever you want to call it, really doesn't feature as much as I thought it would. It is on the darker side, but this ends up being a paranormal in the way of angels and demons. And normally I am not big on angels and demons, like paranormal romances or fiction. I've read a few. I think my favorite is definitely The Shadowhunters, that deals with kind of the angels and demons worlds. But this one was really interesting, and the way they went around things, and that there was little bits of sci-fi elements into it with kind of time and space and almost like wormhole type things. Like it was really interesting the way it was done, and it's very hard to kind of like articulate and talk about it. And I just realized I'm using extremely big words this video. I'm proud of myself. But yeah, it's really hard to kind of put into the words what this is. But you have Vivian who's kind of trying to figure out what happens, and she meets Zion through this opening scene, and they're not really enemies to lovers. There's kind of tension there, but then Zion almost has this mate bond kind of awakening with her, and you're trying to figure out what it is because they're also trying to kind of figure it out, and then he figures it out first. So this is definitely another he falls first. And it's kind of, he can't really force her into awakening with him to what's going on because like she's in the dark. She doesn't know about this type of world. She doesn't know what he is. She doesn't know what she is because yes, there's a mystery there too. So it's really interesting. I definitely will be following with this series because like I said, I felt like you got touches into this world and what was going on and how things were going on, but not enough to really be able to tell you fully like everything about this world and everything about this story, like because I still feel like there's a little bit more to understand, and I don't know if the author did that on purpose or not, but if she did, well done. But yeah, I gave it 4 stars because it was just something that I hadn't seen really done before, and the way it was done was very, like I said, it was very intriguing to me. Like I'm still kind of on the, I don't know if I loved it, I don't know if I liked it, I know I didn't hate it. So it was just interesting, really, really interesting. So if you like kind of a darker bromance with angels and demons and somewhat found family, mysteries, a girl who, a female main character that does not back down. She does not back down. I do like that about her. And that there's more than meets the eye to everybody involved. Then I recommend this book. Check it out. Like I said, I don't want to give too much away, and then honestly I don't know how to give too much away without telling you the entire story, which I'm not going to do. But very interesting read, so definitely 4 stars. We'll be continuing with that series. And my last arc, I did have another book, but my last arc for the month was another one. It's another hockey romance to a series that I have begun to love, and this is You're the One by Nikki Callan. This is book 2 in the Saints hockey team. Book 1, Stick With Me, I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was great. And one of the characters I loved in that book was Ryan, the main character in that book, his hockey friend, Dominic. And Dominic was hysterical in the first one. And he was kind of the ladies' man, just ongoing flirt, funny guy, always looking at the bright side, really into like romance books, and what, like he gets sucked into like their version of like Love Island or The Bachelor. And I loved him. So towards the end of the book, they give a teaser that Dominic is going to be book 2, and how he announces how he's going to find his romance was just iconic for that series. And I was so excited. And I think I just kicked the camera. Sorry. And I was so excited for it. And then book 2 comes up, and this was another one that I was super excited because I loved Dominic. And to find out how he was going to find his love, I was like, okay, this is going to be really interesting. In it, you basically find out that he has signed up to be the next bachelor in the show that everyone was so obsessed with in the first book. The only interesting thing is that Ryan's stepsister from the first book, Mia, she is signed on to be one of the contestants without knowing that Dominic was going to be the bachelor. And they butt heads. They kind of got this enemies to lovers kind of banter going on. And Mia is cute, she's sweet, she's funny, she's sassy, but she also, she's about like, I want to say she's about like 10 years younger than Dominic and Ryan. I think Dominic is about like 30 to 32. And she's somewhere probably about like 21 to 23, somewhere around there. And she's floundering. She didn't really want to go to college. She's traveling. She's just doing all these things. And you find out a lot of that has to do with her having extreme anxiety and panics and panic attacks. And that kind of makes her have this escapist mentality. When things get too big or too real for her, she flees to something new. And so she's not really looking to go on the Bachelor type show, on this show, to find love. She's looking at it as something new to try to do. And then when she finds out that Dominic is the Bachelor, she's like, I don't care. I'm just going to have a vacation. I'm going to enjoy my time. I know he's not going to pick me. Whereas Dominic starts seeing her in a very different light from the beginning of the filming of the show. So you do kind of have this enemies to lovers, or enemies to friends to lovers, I would say, scenario. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I liked it, but there were a few things that I was teetering on not being a fan of. And one of them, once again, is Mia. While I don't mind her as a character, as the romantic interest to Dominic in what we had seen in the first book, it just wasn't fitting for me. But in book 2, in this book, you're seeing a very different side to Dominic. Like in the first side, you see him fun-loving and everything. In this one, it's a very serious side of him. He kind of takes on this almost big brother type role. And it was nice, but I wanted to see a little bit more of that funness and flirtatiousness that he had in the first book. And I felt like that it kind of went down on, as the story went on, that aspect of him went down to where he became a lot more calmer, a lot more kind of responsible, a lot more kind of, you know, and then that kind of took over. He still had a few little flirts and quips and everything, but they just had a different sense to them. And Mia, once again, this was kind of like Peyton from the other, from the Walker University one, is that while her anxiety and panic disorder, I got it, I understood it, there was just, I wish they would have delved into it a little bit more as to when it started. Did she have it as a child? Was this starting because she's an adult now and she's kind of floundering in life the way that many you know, do so, and that she would just like fleeing was her escape? And I got it, but like sometimes it just built up such a wall that I'm like, you gotta give the guy a break here. You gotta give Dominic a break here. You gotta do something. And that would kind of get me annoyed at times. But like I understood parts of it, and it wasn't as bad as Peyton in the Walker. Her Mia's was a little bit more, I think hers came from like a place of embarrassment of her going through this, that she kind of didn't want, like she wanted help, but she didn't want to be like a burden to other people. So that did make her a little bit more vulnerable in my eyes, and I did like that aspect. And so it's just really interesting. I liked the take on it that you got to kind of see this behind the scenes of this dating show, because whether or not it's true, as this is kind of what happens behind the scenes, it definitely put a reality spin to a reality romance show. And I liked that. I liked seeing how it happened. I liked seeing kind of the upsets behind the scenes, and how boring it could actually be being on set. Like it's not all the things that you see on the show. So I did kind of like that. I liked kind of getting those back scenes to it. There were some found friends and found family that Mia had that I absolutely loved. I did expect a little bit more twist and tension with some of the girls involved trying to maybe steal Dominic away. So that also kind of made it a 4-star. But like overall, like I said, it's a really good, it was a really good story. And I liked once again that you had this relationship that felt real, because it's going through the I'm annoyed by you, you frustrate me, to learning about one another, to understanding one another, and having those feelings of love and intimacy and romance grow. So I do like that aspect of it. I'm going to continue with the series because one of the characters, I think his name is Volkov, and he doesn't say much, but the way he says things and when he says things are just so great that I'm like, I gotta know how this guy will find his happy ending, because he is he is a character unto himself. So it is a good series. I do recommend. Like I said, this is not a college hockey romance. This is like a it is the Saints hockey team, so it is like a fictitious NHL type of organization, and it features, you know, pro athletes and kind of on this team and the romances that they have. So it was good. Like I said, 4 stars, and I will be continuing with that series. And last up, my last book for this was an actual book. It was the only physical book that I read the whole month. And this was one that I had reached out to the author and ordered through her site. And so it is signed, and I loved it. I ended up getting a bunch of fun little goodies. I did that in another video. I think it was another book haul video somewhere. And that is Avidian by Ashley R. O'Donovan. This is a very high 4-star read for me. I'll get into why we didn't reach 5 stars, but very high 4-star. This was so unlike a lot of things that I've read, and I highly enjoyed it. You have this world of America, basically. They don't call it America, but it's America, and it has fallen apart. We are now in a sort of post-apocalyptic dystopian America, and stuff has happened, and California has broken off and become islands. Florida has broken off and become an island, and the mainland parts and all the other parts of the US have been broken up into fractions ruled by a sense of like monarchy. All right. And while this is going on, you have extreme weathers of I think the eastern hemisphere is all ice and snow. The western is kind of like dry and desert. Nothing's really growing that much. But even the ice and snow on the eastern side, there's not much there. You know, there is definitely a class system going on. But also at the time that everything has kind of fallen apart, people have started waking up to abilities, and they are known as avids. And sadly, these avids are taken and sold, for lack of better term, within these elite families for whatever reason these families wish to use them. If you get it, you get it. And so we have our main character, Kat, who she is an avid, and she works for the Volkov family. I know I mentioned Volkov for like the last book, but different Volkov. And the Volkovs are kind of a ruling family in the West, and she serves them with her ability to speak to the dead. And the Volkovs use her to kind of contact people when they need information, when they need to figure out who's committed crimes against them, those types of things. And while the leader, Marco, is kind of like a father figure to her in a very messed up kind of way, one of his sons, Oren, is just absolutely horrid. We're just gonna go with that. So in this story, as it goes on, very early actually, Kat ends up meeting this guy that she's kind of intrigued with, but she knows nothing can ever have come of it because she is basically property of the Volkov family. She's brought to the eastern side to Marco's brother's kind of kingdom estate to figure out a murder mystery of what has happened to basically Marco's nephew. And so she's using her abilities to speak with the dead to try to figure out what happened. And the mystery ends up being a little bit bigger than what she's bargaining for. And she ends up finding out that the stranger that she met is Malachi, and he is kind of the estranged son of Marco, and he has secrets of his own. So there is this kind of budding romance in there. This is, like I said, it is has supernatural elements with the different abilities of the avids. You have kind of the illicit activities being done to these avids, I should say. That's the best way, because I don't want to get tagged for anything. And you have this kind of post-apocalyptic world, which I'm not a fan of post-apocalyptic or dystopian novels. Very rarely do I gravitate towards that. It's just not, I mean, and I probably do need a touch of romance storyline to get me involved with that, because otherwise it's not big for me. But the way that this is done, really good. There are secrets of rebellions and what that looks like. There is, of course, an animal sidekick. We have a little ghost dog. Yes, we have a ghost dog. Love it. So it was just really interesting, the way that this world was creating. I was just really intrigued by how things operated. And when you get to know a little bit about what this possible secret rebellion might be, and you kind of go in there. I mean, it's not a spoiler so much that goes on, so I'm like, it's a little glossing of a surprise in the book, but I mean, you're gonna figure it out pretty about 100 pages in. And what that looks like, what that system looks like, really intrigued. Like, I was pulled in. Like, this was definitely one that I kept picking up the book to go back to it to be immersed in the world. So the relationship between Kat and Malachi is, you know, it's a little flirty, it's a little banter. She definitely puts him in his place a few times. And he is, you know, charming. And I felt like there was a beginning to get into it, and by the end of it, you were in their romance, but it didn't feel as deep as I wanted it to go. So I think that with this being a series, I think it'll go into that a little bit more in the future books. I can't wait for the second book to come out. I'm not gonna lie. This book leaves off on a cliff ending that you're like, oh, okay, we're gonna go there now. So very interesting. Highly recommend. It's not a book that I've really seen talked about much on social media or on BookTube, on Bookstagram. I haven't seen it covered very much. So highly advocate this book. Really well done. Like I said, post-apocalyptic, dystopian, supernatural powers, risings and uprisings, murder mystery, contact with the other side. But yeah, like I said, very interesting read, very underrated read. So highly recommend this book here. And yeah, that is basically it. Like I said, it was an arc heavy month. While I love getting all the arcs, I do, like I said, I'm trying to find that balance where I can read some of the stuff on my shelves as well and start moving things around, because if you've seen my new library video, you know there is some empty space on there to be filled up by the books that are stacking up on my T.B.R. shelves here. So we are going to find some balance, because I do like getting my arcs, but I also got to read what I got. So we will find it. It will be there. But let me know if you have read any of these arcs as well and what your thoughts were on them. Let me know if any of them sound maybe a little bit more interesting now to you. Other than that, I hope things are going well for those of you who have kids in school. Hopefully everything is going well, your kids are staying healthy, as all the germs are now back and spreading in the schools. That just seems to happen every year. If your kids are not yet in school and you're getting ready, may the back to school shopping and prep not be too exhausting for you. And if you don't have any kids and you're enjoying your summer break before you go back to school, or you're just enjoying your summer, what's left of it, your weekends, enjoy, have fun, stay safe, stay healthy, stay hydrated, and I will see you guys in the next video.